and as I was reading, I was like, wow, you're a profoundly odd individual to write that to. Do you guys have any questions or anything that you want to comment on or talk about before we read something else?
Do you happen to remember what the inspiration for that story was? Because the ending was very different than the meat of it.
Okay, so that story, I wrote that story while I was working as a bathroom remodeler. And so I wrote at like 4 o'clock every morning. And I really liked the Flaming Lips song, Yoshimi and the Robot. Or I think the Flaming Lips song is called Yoshimi, but in that song, she works for the city fighting robots. So the inspiration was like, what would it be like to have a city job? You know, this kind of like, show up, clock in, clock out, like 15-minute breaks, kind of like banal workaday reality of fighting robots, So I started there, and I kind of wrote it, and I thought it was going to be, kind of a happier version of Romeo and Juliet. Like she was going to meet the robot, and they were going to fall in love, and everything was going to be okay. And when I got to that, I was writing it, 4:30 or something in the morning, when I got to that line where she reaches out, they're in the salt marshes, and they've gone there, and she sees her reflection in the mirror, and the robot has proven that there's this connection between them, and she reaches out to touch his face, and for a moment his eyes glow purple. When I was writing that, what I thought was going to happen was that they were going to close the deal. They were going to make love, and I was thinking that the big danger of writing the scene is it could be so cheesy and so weird and all that. So that was the challenge that I was thinking was going to happen there. And then as she reached out to touch his cheek, my hand wrote without me making the decision to. Then he cut her hand off, right? And I thought oh, that's lame. So I crossed it out, and I just couldn't get back into the story. So I went to work and all that, and I realized that decision for the robot to cut her hand off came from a deeper place than the happy love story that I was telling, right? I thought that I wanted to tell a story about how love brings people together no matter what their circumstances. But the story that I really believed was that love can bring people together, but it can also force them to destroy each other unintentionally, So I put then you cut her hand off thing back in and all that, and Yoshimi ends up in the hospital, and the Bigfoot thing, I think, for me, reading that story now, what it feels like is these aesthetics that we grow up in, Like for me, when I was growing up, it was kung fu, right? Like all my friends knew kung fu, right? Just we read magazines about it, and the aesthetic of that, in movies and comic books and stuff, when you apply it to the real world, it's so much more odd and heartbreaking and bloody. Violence is really odd and heartbreaking and bloody. The stuff that you see in movies is diversion, right? So for me, the story is about those aesthetics breaking down into what they really feel like in the real world, And so the Bigfoot monsters coming along are kind of a way to break the robots down in that way. Kind of a way also to maybe play with the idea that as a culture we always are being courted with a new villain. There's always someone to be scared of and to want to fight and to identify and then defeat, and then there's another one after that. I remember when I was a kid, I had this uncle. I still have it, so he's alive. He's fine. He's doing great. He's in Vietnam, and he is. If you're a young man, by far the most charming individual you could meet. He would talk about war, and he would talk about all these adventures that he had living in Vietnam for 10 years. And he was in the CIA, right? Literally, he was in the CIA. And so I remember him talking about that, and I had this, what I realize now was a super naive thought. I was like, there's not going to be another war after Vietnam. People have learned their lesson from this. There's no way that America will go to another place and do what we did there. And of course, that's not how things work. So for me, I guess the story is about these people with all these overlays of pop culture, and then they live these kind of real lives through that, the reality that they're in. The reality that they're in, for me, feels like a kung fu magazine, like a 50s movie, like a heavy metal song. It feels like the aesthetic that I grew up in. You know. Any other questions about the story? I was thinking of reading another piece, kind of in honor of the election. This is a series of three short stories, three flash fiction pieces that came out in Daily Science Fiction in July. And where these come from for me is the idea that like the way we see the world is changed by the assumptions and the ideas that we have about the world, right? And as I was playing with that idea that we can like literally see the world differently depending on our assumptions. And my daughter's school had a lice outbreak, and I was totally naive about that. I was like, lice outbreak, that's a thing? Like that's still happening? And yeah, like half the school got lice. Fortunately, my 7-year-old didn't get them, but I don't know if you've ever had that experience if someone close to you has lice. Even if you don't, your head is like itching all the time because you're thinking about it all the time. You're like, maybe I do. Maybe I'm the one who does. I mean, people who have lice never know. Like I don't know. You know. So for me, this story, and I want to explain the concept a little bit before I get into it because it's a little strange. This story is about this world in which aliens have sort of subjugated humanity, and the aliens are these bugs that sit on their heads and put needles into their foreheads and control their thoughts. And they're called companions because the people don't know that they're subjugated, right? So the first flash fiction piece is called Companion. Tarifa's office was so hot that as I was sitting opposite her, listening to her complain about Ott's disappearance, I could not help but imagine him laid out on her desk, roasting. He's your partner. Find him, she said finally. Tarifa's companion stepped gently over the crown of her skull, its long black legs picking through the strands of her hair. It worked its needle back and forth in the small wound on her forehead, fixing its single shining eye on me and my own companion. I'll get him, Tarifa, I said. Her companion removed the needle from her forehead and clear fluid dripped from the tip of it. You damn well better, Moreland. Detectives do not disappear from my station. Which, knowing Tarifa, was clear enough to me. If I didn't find Ott, they would be looking to kill him. A day, I said. No problem. I found Ott just where I expected to. It wasn't so much a neighborhood as a study in decay, building after building, tumbled down and empty of everything except trash and shadows. And Ott, on the third floor of a tenement, sitting bareheaded on a filthy mattress. His pistol was 5 feet away on the carpet. Tarifa's wondering where you are, he said. He shrugged like, here I am. I wondered if you remembered what we did here in this very apartment 2 years ago. We had been tracking a gang of companion killers and found them here. They called themselves scientists, rebels. A companion was cut apart on a table like they were studying it, just like you see in horror movies. That was the day I saw what Ott could really do with a gun. There were still stains on the walls. What happened to your companion, Ott? I said. He was silent for a long second. You can rip them off. Did you know that? But you have to. Ott's voice drifted. The wound on his forehead, where his companion had been needling him his whole life, looked red and distended. You have to hide the thought, he finally continued. If the companion senses rebellion in you, they eat it. They suck it up through their needle. Ott's chin flicked in the direction of the bathroom, and there I found his companion on the tile floor, smashed. But maybe Ott's okay, I thought. Maybe we can get him another companion. I felt the needle shift in my forehead, and my companion's delicate feet perch over my ears. A realization blossomed in my mind. Of course, Ott couldn't be saved. Just as it happened for all of us, the moment Ott slipped from the womb, a new, tiny companion had been lifted from an egg pod and set upon his soft skull, where it lowered its needle into him, joining his thoughts. Just imagine how he felt now. The horror of being alone, the coldness. My God, he must be so scared. But maybe also it would be hard to go back. He might want to be alone now. This is how it happened for those scientists we had shot down here 2 years ago. One gets loose of his companions somehow, snatches his friends off, and then they start plotting to kill other companions. The scientists had pasted pictures all over the walls in the bathroom, things I could not even understand the importance of. Empty buildings, extinct animals, fields of executed rebels in front of the Capitol building, the work of nuts. I heard a thud in the next room, and for the first time it occurred to me that I had left Ott's gun on the carpet. I left him, Ott, alone with a gun. There was an empty beer bottle in the sink, and I picked it up and tossed it down the hallway. Once it passed the corner, 3 rounds hit it perfectly, turning the bottle into glass powder. But I was right behind it, capitalizing on Ott's mistake, rolling low. Ott, like an idiot, was standing in front of the window, perfectly silhouetted. I fired and hit him in the chest. As he fell, I fired again at his head. He lay there, his throat flexing. Not wanting to look at my ex-partner's dying, and worse, companionless face anymore, I stood in front of the window. My mind wandered, and for a moment, it seemed that the neighborhood's decay stretched across the whole city. The buildings were scabbed and shabby, the parks were overgrown and abandoned. I thought for a moment I saw a rotting corpse a few blocks down. But I blinked and it was gone. The city was pristine again, and the reflection of my companion was looking back at me, its shiny black eye regarding me as it worked a needle deeper into my brain. The second story in that series is called Companionless, and it picks up just like a couple weeks after the first one. 2 weeks after I found Ott, my old partner, bareheaded and totally robed in an apartment, and killed him, I looked out my window and saw I was being watched. It was a simple white van a half a block down. They weren't trying to hide themselves, or not very well anyway. A man sat in the driver's seat, his companion clinging to his face and arranging its needles so he had to look around its small black body to see. I knew him. His name was Varner. I picked up the phone and called the station. Tarifa answered right away. "Marlon," she said, "you better not be calling in sick." I weighed my response, watching Varner from a crack in the blinds. I was pretty sure he knew I was watching. His companion had crawled almost all the way down his face and was looking up, dangling from the needle it had implanted in his forehead. I weighed my response. "Sick?" I said. "Hell no. I'm on my way in." "Good." "Alone," I said. Tarifa was silent, no doubt trying to figure out what I meant. I hung up, looked for another moment at Varner's companion crawling across his face. It had this unseemly, jerky movement that my own companion would never use, and then walked downstairs. When I got out onto the street, he was gone. What would Varner want with me, I wondered. I had met him about 5 years ago. The department rented out Sean's every month or so, and the drinks were on them, and cops from all over the city jammed in the place. I had been standing with Ott at the bar talking. He stopped talking and pointed. Bloody Varner. I had no idea what Ott was talking about, but he explained it. A year before, the department had been called to one of the companion nest sites. These are practically shrines for some people. They quit their jobs and just spend their days standing around the nest sites, looking down into the pit, seeing fresh egg chains being dragged up by the people who work there to be taken to hospitals and joined to babies. It's all beautiful, of course, postcard stuff. But these people take it too far. They watch the egg chains come out and they weep and wail. Sometimes we get called in for crowd control because they get so emotional that one of them will fall into the nest site. Varner was in charge of a 4-man squad that day. There were a lot of loonies, and they started pushing past the barricades. He ended up ordering his people to fire into the crowd. He killed 30 people and their companions. Tarifa keeps him around for dirty stuff now, Ott had told me at Sean's that night. Without her, he'd be gone, and he knows it. Which is what helped me make my next decision. I didn't go into the station. If Varner was following me, it must be on Tarifa's orders. Instead of going in, I went back into my apartment and turned the TV on, put a rotating fan on high. Then I walked back down to the street, moved up a block over, and bought a coffee at the breakfast place there. From the front window, I could see the whole block very easily. Before very long, Varner showed up again. He parked where he had before, and he sat in the driver's seat staring out from my window. He was looking at the flickering lights from the TV and the blinds moving in the wind from the fan. Did that mean someone was inside? As he was watching, I left the breakfast place, walked around the block, and approached his van from the back. I stayed in the rearview mirror's blind spots as best I could. The plan was to open the door, yank him out, and hit him, and then figure out what he and Tarifa were up to. I yanked, but Varner was quick. He swung first, and I felt my nose pop, broken under his knuckles. I stumbled and swung blindly, but then he had me by the collar, dragging me back. I fell against metal, a door slammed. I was in the back of the van. You hit like an old man, I said. Varner's eyes went to my nose, and the blood streaming out of it, and he smiled. And then he reached up, lifted the companion off of his head, and set it next to his right foot. My mind raced. It was some kind of prop, not a real companion, which meant that Tarifa must be bareheaded too. They must be rebels, like those scientists Ott and I had killed all those years ago. Varner had a pistol aimed from the hip, and I had just enough time to wonder what he planned to do with it before he fired. It felt like he'd been hit by a truck. I lay on the floor of the van, wondering what it would feel like to die. And then Varner helped me up. There was no pain, and the inside of the van had the oddest light to it. Varner tapped the top of his skull, and I felt my own head. My companion was gone. Relax. I didn't shoot you. The impact you felt was me shooting your companion, and when the mind bond breaks, it hurts. It takes a couple of minutes for the venom to fade, Varner said. Once it does, you'll have to meet somebody. Who? I asked. You, he said. The third short or flash piece is called Bareheaded. Rebels isn't the right word, Varner said to me. We were standing on a bluff overlooking the beach, the white van parked a block away. Tarifa stood next to Varner, and they both looked at me, their expressions crosses between fear and excitement. They had what I knew were fake companions on their heads, but if I didn't know, I would not have been able to tell. Companions resemble very large roaches, with the graceful long legs of a stick bug. The needle that they place in the forehead to join with our host's mind is about 7 inches long and a gently darkened purple. I was having the thought that their fake companions had none of the grace and beauty of the real thing, and then that thought began to fade. You're starting to realize, aren't you? Tarifa said. My own fake companion moved on my head. Those moments were the worst, she said, and the best. Every decision you ever made, Marlon, was influenced, even controlled, by your companion. It was with you since you were an infant. You couldn't feel the control. But look around. Indeed, down on the beach, which had been pristine just yesterday, piles of burned trash lay scattered with empty bottles. A human body lay half in the water, moving with the tide, and when the water went out, a group of half a dozen companions skittered across the sand and tore at the body, yanking off scraps of flesh. Just yesterday this beach was perfect, I said. No, it wasn't, Varner answered. Your companion showed you what you wanted to see. This city is a wreck. Garbage, corpses, sickness. Those, he said, pointing to the companions that ran in all directions when a wave washed around the body. Rogue groups like those run free and eat dead people, dogs, sometimes kids. Your companion manipulates what you see. Tarifa picked up where Varner had left off. Rebels is not a good word because, well, there's only two of us, Varner and I. Unfortunately, the police, us, have gotten very good at finding and killing the companionless. So why come after me, I asked. Even as I said it, I couldn't be sure if I was happy to be free of my companion. Well, I sent you after Ott, your ex-partner. You reported that you never found him, Tarifa said. There was a gleam of hope in her eyes. We thought that maybe you did find him, and that he was companionless, and then that he converted you. We hoped we'd have access to a network of rebels. I found him, I said. His companion was dead, but he tried to kill me before I could get anything out of him. I got the better of him. Ott's dead? Varner asked, staring down at the companion sprinting back and forth across the sand, the perverse mirror image of the tide. Dead, I said. The look on Varner's face when I said it made me look down at the body on the beach. It was better than seeing the hollow heartbreak in his eyes. In the end, of course, there was really only one way for it to go, one decision for me to make. 2 weeks after the day that Varner killed my companion, we sat in the white van, a block from the nesting site where he'd become famous as Bloody Varner. He handed me a bottle. It won't be easy, he said, but drink it all. He was right. The smell was bad and the taste was worse. Immediately, the fluid leapt in my throat and I had to force bile back down. The second gulp was easier. By the third, Varner had started talking. You know, the day after I told my squad to open up on a crowd just out there at the nest site, the day after that, I was walking on the beach. I was happy. Isn't that something? I just ordered my men to shoot down 30 people. I took a deep breath and paused, drinking from the bottle. Your companion made you happy? I asked. I guess. The next day I was walking to my car, and Tarifa drove by in this van. She asked me to get in, and she did for me what I did for you. She blasted the companion right off my head. Once the venom faded, I remembered ordering my guys to fire, and I knew I was a murderer. My companion had made me one, and I knew I'd get revenge for it. He looked at the bottle in my hand. Drink it up, Marlon. It's got to get into your muscles. As I finished whatever was in the bottle, Varner took his fake companion off of his head and held it in his hand, staring at it, as if it could help him understand all the years that he had spent with a real companion's needle sunk in his brain. At last I set the empty bottle down. Varner looked at me. Are you gonna puke? No. He set his fake companion back on his head and opened the van's doors. We stepped out, and he set his hand on my shoulder and stared at me with his dark eyes. Thank you, I said. He smiled oddly, as if just at that moment he had meant to thank me. I walked down the block to the nesting site. It was a great hole in the cityscape, the place where one of the companion's spaceships had crashed decades ago, and crowds of people stood around the ruin, craning their heads to watch the glistening egg chains emerge from the pit, carried by the attendants. They'd be taken to the hospital, from here to be joined with infants. And seeing the nesting site like this, free of a companion perched on my skull and manipulating my brain, was horrifying. The crowds were filthy and dazed, some of them naked. Burned out cars blocked the streets. I pushed through the crowd. From the barricade, I could see the police officers. There were only a few, and they were filthy and dazed also, staring down into the pit instead of at the crowd. Varner had told me that if I threw myself into the pit, I'd fall past street level, far down into the dark depths that the companions dug out and festooned with their ova, which poured out the egg chains that would be collected by companions and then brought out for the human attendants to bring to the hospital. I'd fall. I'd probably die on impact. And then I would be cut apart by companions and brought to the ova to consume, which is where the poison, by now pooling in my muscles, came in. I stepped over the barricade, and I stared down into the darkness of the nest in sight, and I jumped. Is there anything that you guys want to talk about in terms of that story, or about science fiction, or?
Is that what it is, or
What's that?
Sam?
That's the investor, yeah. That's he jumps down to the pit and gets eaten by the companions, or maybe survives and gets a job as a barista at a local Starbucks.
Either or.
You never know.
Only those two options.
Mike, can you, you teach your degree, your major in English, your degrees in English allows you to teach at Dominguez Hills, UCLA. Can you talk about how writing science fiction has got you work?
Yeah. Well, publishing in science fiction is a little bit different than publishing in literary fiction. In fact, we even use different language. Like, if you're a literary writer, a realistic writer, like writing a book like this or something like that, when you send a story out and they publish it, that's what you call it. They published my story, right? If you send out a science fiction story, you sell it, right? That's the verb we use. We sell it because there's money in science fiction in ways that is not true in literary fiction. One of my first stories I sent out, I was very lucky to land it in a really prestigious national journal, and it got picked up for the anthology, the Best American Series, and the journal I made no money off of that, right? So the economic reality of publishing short stories for a living is it's not feasible, right? It's not possible. In fact, a couple, I don't know, maybe 5-6 months ago, I had a rather depressing experience. I was teaching at UCLA Extension, and I had a journalist in my class. This guy's maybe 50 years old, and he'd been like a highly paid journalist in New York, but journalism fell out, right? So he moved to LA, and he told me that his next plan was to make his living as a short story writer, and I had to tell him that's not a thing, as a short story writer you can't make that much money, even as a science fiction short story writer. Though I get paid for all the things I publish now, and making your living solely at that's hard. So the other things I do are teaching. I teach. I also am a consultant with a futurist company. And then what we do is we go to different companies or governmental organizations, and we talk to them about the next technological revolution that's coming, right? Like nanotechnology, printable screen, like that kind of thing, right? And we write stories for them to help them envision that next step, that next reality. We work with with companies like Hershey's and Pepsi, and we worked most recently with NATO, and help them sort of envision what the city will be like when it starts changing via artificial intelligence and robots and different things like that. So in that sense, I would say that science fiction does this really cool thing where it kind of jumps past all your assumptions, right? So if we're talking about War of the Worlds, I don't know how many of you have read War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells. It was written, I think, in the 1890s. And so at this time, H.G. Wells, wanted to talk about colonialism, right? And he knew that the people that he'd be talking to, people in London, white English people, would believe that they were justified in colonial behavior, in invading other countries and shooting people and taking things from them because they were going to use it in their perspective, right? And so they would believe their racist views would allow them to not even have that debate. How do you have a debate about colonialism if someone is deeply entrenched in that kind of racism, right? Well, the way you do it is you write a book in which aliens beat the crap out of London, right? And just laser beam stuff and the best the English have to offer, this massive battleship goes right at the alien, and the alien just lasers it in half. And the English people are utterly defeated and despondent, and they fall apart. And then, of course, spoiler alert, the aliens die because of a common cold. guess, they get colds and they pass away. So he's talking about colonialism, and he's leaping past all those assumptions by jumping, by putting it in the place, putting the English people in the place of the colonized, right? And he's doing that by using aliens. So like science fiction is able to jump past all that, and for me, like science fiction, I know a lot of people sort of view it as the literature of the technological age, the science of science fiction, and I don't see it that way at all. To me, it's fable, To me, science fiction jumps past our assumptions. It makes magical things possible, right? As a culture, most of us just don't feel like magic is even possible. You know what I mean? Like for instance, if I said, oh, you guys, I was in New York an hour ago, and I cast a spell and I brought myself here. You would say, okay. You have a problem, sir. But if I said I was in New York an hour ago and there's this amazing bullet train that uses nanotechnology to propel us faster than you've ever been able to go before, and I went from New York to LA in half an hour, what do you think? I did it. It's true. You believe that, right? That's science. Like science blows our minds every single day. I mean, we carry around supercomputers in our pockets like it's nothing, right? Like we have access to all the world's information every day, all the time. And for those of us who are teachers, like, and we make that weird argument, we're like, guys, put your cell phones away, even though it's like this portal into infinity that everybody has, like right in front of them. So science blows our minds. Science is our default for the impossible now, right? I mean, if you want to talk about things that can't happen, you throw a little science at it, and people are on board, right? So that's why, for me, science fiction is an important genre, because you can do things that fable used to do. You can kind of take people into the dark forest that doesn't quite exist anymore. The dark forest, being, I guess, something like you find in like Little Red Riding Hood or something that's sort of like primeval, dangerous place that we've all, sort of inherited in our subconscious because it was so important to our ancestors, right? We don't fear that in this cultural moment in this place anymore because, we spend our time driving up and down Carson and, eating at like charro chicken and stuff like that. That's me. I don't know what you guys do. But that's our life now. So I feel like science fiction can jump us into that fable space, So for me, that's why I feel like it's an important genre. Should I read more? Or
I was going to say that I think science fiction is important too because it gives us a venue to explore what it means to be human. Because if I said when you wrote to an autobiographical story about what it means to be a king, it wouldn't be meaningful, it would be too personal and embarrassing. And if you move into a science fiction genre, that's not possible for you to suspend reality.
Yeah.
You can explore your humanity as an outsider.
It's completely true, and it's a really important discussion to have right now because the weird fact is that we are all right now, all of us in this room probably are all cyborgs, right? So a cyborg is a human and a machine blended together. Usually when you see it in science fiction, it's like the Borg, resistance is futile. They've got like machine hands and like one eye, and they're totally, like frightening looking. We've opted into being cyborgs though. Like we extend our brains through the use of the computer that I was talking about, right? Like think about it. Do you have any phone numbers memorized?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
From people that you met recently, or is it people that you have before yourself?
Oh, no, just, I guess, people that I prioritize over other people. My father, my mother, my brothers, my uncles, my aunts.
Yeah. All of the ones that I have memorized were from before I got a cell phone. Like I know my friend Ben's phone number from when we were kids, because I called it on a, like not a rotary phone, but like a stationary phone countless times, So I guess the idea I'm trying to get at is that we're extending our brains via these objects. We're extending our bodies via our cars, our skin via our clothes, that kind of thing. And so we've kind of opted into this cyborg nature. Like, Facebook and whatnot makes all kinds of decisions for us based on these algorithms that are, way smarter than we are, So So thinking about what makes a human being is pretty important. I mean, not many people are really asking that question, but we all are right on that threshold of like, am I still a human being if every choice I make is highly influenced by artificial intelligence that I don't realize is there? Like if everything I buy from my phone, and my phone suggests one of three things to me, right? Because it's got an algorithm for people, like me. So yeah, that question of like what is human and like what our essential essence is really important, especially because in the next 10 years, I keep holding this thing up, but in the next 10 years, like they'll be able to put this in your head, right? And the question will become like, do you want it in yours? Do I want it in mine? Well, it doesn't matter because somewhere else someone will do that, right? they'll be able to put a computer of this size and complexity in their brain, and they'll be able to see the screen, not just on their glasses, but in their eyes, right? And that will make them, it'll definitely make them smarter. It might make them more vulnerable to like being hacked. Like recently they came up with software to hack pacemakers. So pacemakers control the beat of your heart. Many people with heart trouble have them. So you can hack into pacemakers now and kill people from 100 yards away. You can hack into people's cars. Sorry, probably all drove here. I drove here. This is like terrifying idea, but you can hack someone's car, hit the brakes on it, turn the heater on, put your face on the screen of their car, make their car drive to your house. Whatever you want to do, you can hack things like that now. So the question of like when we meld more completely, like are we still human, is a really important question to ask. And you're right. It's kind of a boring question. Like it's not as compelling and sexy as our cell phones can be, right? So we have to ask it through science fiction or through fable or something like that.
Yeah. I'm so enthused I got sidetracked in one of the thoughts, so I wanted to say thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And I wanted to announce we do have refreshments in the back, and we have some of tonight's work here, so $5, $10, $15 if you're interested, please come and browse. And then we'd like to open up some time for you to sign books and maybe answer a little bit more personalized questions. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Yeah.